I thought I could avoid the struggle, but isn't it the universal truth that we will all struggle? So I grew up with stories about my grandfather, who was a survivor. He was tenacious and he never gave up, no matter what. Of course, India gains its independence, but the country is in total chaos. The economy is in turmoil, and our family business, we were jewelers, was struggling. We didn't know from one day to the next if there'd be enough food to feed my dad's family, which was one of 12. So my dad gets this idea that he's gonna come to America to achieve the dream. He comes in 1967 with $8 in his pocket, goes back to India, marries my mom in 1970. Yes, it was an arranged marriage. They met, 3 days later they were married, a week later they were married. And they moved to America. My mom was 18. So by all accounts, my parents make it. Remember, they came with $8. We ended up living in this home, arguably in the nicest neighborhood in Miami, Florida, on the ocean. My parents went from having an engineering consulting firm to real estate, and in 1989, they lost everything. The real estate market crashed. My parents had to file bankruptcy, and I watched my parents carry whatever they could into this rental home near my high school. And yes, my dad cried. But they did this really important thing. They told my sisters and I'm the oldest of three, the truth. And they gave us hope and never made us feel like we were gonna struggle. They gave us faith and they surrounded us with love. So I'm a senior in high school at this point, and I decide, I've watched my parents struggle, I've heard about my grandparents struggling, I am never gonna struggle. Like, I figured it out, I've got the plan. If I just go to the best schools, get the best grades, work really hard, make a lot of money, win the awards, I'm not gonna struggle. I figured it out. Boy, was I wrong. So it's my job here today to help you think and feel differently, or maybe both. And what I know from spending 3 days with all of you is all of you can do this. We can all and have the ability and capability to rise through anything. Personally, in the events industry, in our communities, we can rise through it. So, it's 2007. By this point, I went to UNC Chapel Hill. I graduated top of my class, yes, won all the awards. I went on to Wall Street and worked at Morgan Stanley as an investment banker. I then went to Columbia Law School, and yes, graduated top of my class. By way of California, I end up back in Miami practicing law. Eventually, I start my own law firm, and at this point, I have married a firefighter, I have 2 little children, and I am hustling. I'm going to every networking event, I'm missing dinner, my kids are asking me where I am. See, the thing is I was working so hard to get to the next goal, to make the next payroll, to get the client, to make the money for my children and my family, and yet I wasn't enjoying my family. Because I kept thinking I had to make it to the next thing. I was in a self-imposed prison that looked beautiful with glass walls. And it looked like stress and burnout and overwhelm and status quo. I was trying to keep up appearances. I was trying to make it to that fancy dinner that I really couldn't afford. So it's in this context, when my kids were 2 and 3, that I get a chance to meet a real estate developer. Now, we don't have enough time, so I'm not gonna go through the details, but what I will tell you is this is right before the crash, right? So it's 2007 and 8, y'all remember what real estate was like. Booming, South Florida was obviously no stranger to this. And I get this chance to meet a real estate developer, and I think to myself, oh my God, if I can get this one client, that means volume business, financial stability, more time with my kids. I was so hungry for the client. I went in, I didn't ask any questions, I just jumped in. And I will tell you and admit that my gut was screaming. My inner voice was telling me to ask questions, and I didn't. I just silenced what my moral compass was telling me. Because I saw this client as the answer to my struggle. I did about 200 closings with this client between 2007 and 2008, and I stopped working with him in March 2009. And I merged my practice then with my dad's, who's also a lawyer. And we were doing litigation and foreclosure defense, and I'm representing now the big banks. And I grow our practice by 1,200%. In 2011, 4 years after I met this real estate developer, 2 FBI agents showed up at my office. Within 3 months, my attorney called me into his office, and he's the former US attorney for the Southern District of Florida, like a father figure to me. And he goes, Rashmi, you're a target. I didn't even know what that meant. Like, I'm a real estate lawyer, I'm not a criminal lawyer. And once he explained it to me, I started shaking uncontrollably. Because this was my whole life. This was everything I had worked so hard for, and all I could think about was, I'm disgracing my parents, my children, my community. I sit on a lot of boards in Miami. And my entire world imploded. I was like, I'm gonna prove that I'm not guilty. Eventually, my attorney called me into his office. And he basically said, Rashmi, I know, and I've known him. This is now another attorney, David, who's been a friend of mine for like 20 years. His wife went to college with me. He and I taught at UM Law School together. He goes, Rashmi, I know you didn't walk into this planning a crime. But here's the thing, you knew enough. And as an attorney, you had a fiduciary duty to ask the questions that you didn't ask. And not doing something is still doing something wrong. And he looked at me and he goes, Rashmi, you're going to have a coming to Jesus moment. Which, by the way, is funny because he's Jewish and I'm Hindu. And I made the hardest decision I've ever had to make, which was to plead guilty to a federal crime. I thought I could avoid the struggle, but isn't it the universal truth that we will all struggle? And struggle looks differently for all of us. For some of us, it's change, fear, uncertainty, anxiety, or it's legal, marital, financial, medical, mental health. And the thing is we all go through struggle. Sometimes it's multiple things that we're juggling on one day. And the world tells us, rise above, keep going, move on. And I don't think that's the answer. Because if we just rise above, we're just escaping. And what I believe is we go through struggle in life to grow, to evolve, to become better versions of ourselves. The only way to grow, I believe, is by going and rising through it. So here's what I know. Struggle isn't a detour. It's a doorway. If it works. I had spent my whole life thinking I could avoid the struggle, right? That struggle's bad. I got to keep it over here. But what I know is that struggle, when we embrace it and then reframe it, is a doorway to something that we can't even know is available to us. It's an opportunity for us. So the next thing I had to do was to identify. Now for me, I wanted to identify the people in my life that would lift me and ground me, but also tell me the truth that I needed to hear about myself. I had to surrender my ego, because let's face it, ego's a trap. I certainly was like, what will people think of me? What will people say? What's gonna happen to my reputation? All of the things that you can imagine I was thinking and feeling. I had to surrender control, and I had to get out of my head and realize, this is not happening to me. This is happening for me. And what I know is by reframing, identifying, surrendering, I could then evolve. So what's my legacy gonna be? Well, I hope when my kids are fighting a fight in a revolution, they think of my grandfather, their great-grandfather. And when my kids move to a new city or country and are scared, but do it anyways, I hope they think of my parents, their nana and nani. And when my kids are going through struggle, which they will, and they'd rather just escape and push harder and move on and keep going, I hope they know to reframe, identify, surrender, and evolve, and think of me, and rise together with each other and with our community. That's a legacy I can live with. Thank you so much. I'm Rashmi Airan.